Hey, this is Brian Mullins, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
I'm in your guys' place where you guys do all of your music creation here in the studio, and it's just great. So we're in Evansville, Indiana, where it happens, and you got a new album coming out called Heavy Shoes. Actually, it's out today.
Out today.
Right now. Okay.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, and what's incredible is when you get to do this kind of work, and you get this because you go on the road a lot when you guys tour, is when you get on the road, incredible things happen. I'd sent Chris Tappus, who's your bandmate, I sent him a text when I was first moving out. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in the Kentucky area, and I know that Kentucky and Indiana are often the same place. I think I'm going to be right by you guys. I'm staying at my buddy's place in Louisville. And he's like, yeah, I'm super busy. I don't think it's going to work. And that's cool, you know. And then Brad Hutchings, who's our mutual friend, he's like, hey, Pete, you have to do this. You're in the area. You have to do it. And he bugged me. And I'm like, well, look, I'll send Chris a text. And he's like, don't worry about Chris. Brian's going to do it.
That's funny.
And he got it done. So, man, thanks for coming on the show. When an album comes out, it's a big moment. You know, you only get so many albums in your life, right? Like this is our big swing, and this is one of your big swings. So what are your thoughts on Heavy Shoes and this thing coming out today?
You're right. It's always exciting. But maybe this time a little bit more so. This is the first time, you know, it's on a pretty big label, Mascot, so it's been great what they've done to launch this record. So it's you know, to walk in and see it in a store down the street, you know, and that it came through the same channels that all your favorite records come through. You know, there's a little special. You know, I'm not jaded enough yet where that doesn't. I'm not gonna pretend that I'm not excited by that. So yeah, that's cool. And then, you know, for a lot of bands, this record, like many for other bands, you know, it's going to be kind of the COVID record, you know, because that's when we started it and then we couldn't finish it. And this is a long time in the making, and we're really proud of it. I really like this record, and so yeah, it's exciting.
Where should folks buy the record, since we're talking about it?
Well, you could get it anywhere you buy records, anywhere you buy vinyl, and then also, of course, you can go to Mascot's, I think it's Mascot Label Group. You can get it there. You can get it at a Cold Stare show.
There you go. I love that. Okay, so getting back into the album part of it, it is the COVID album. There's been so many of these things. When you guys get together, first off, were you guys able to get together very much because of COVID?
Well, we'd already done the big tracking. You know, we went to Sam Phillips in Memphis, and we cut drums and guitar. You know, that's typically how we work, and some bass and maybe some electric piano. And then we'll take the basics of those tracks, and then we'll finish the rest in our respective studios. You know, Chris has a space a lot like this one, and he'll do vocals there. And I mean, that wasn't the plan, but that's just what we ended up doing because we couldn't get back to Memphis because everything shut down after that initial tracking. You know, but there were rumors. You know, it's like, what's COVID? What are these people talking about? And then 3 weeks later, you know, the world stopped. So we have an album just halfway started, and like, okay, dang, what now? You know, like every other band in the world. So it feels good to get it out, and then and then we finished it at our respective studios. Never went back into Sam Phillips to complete it, and then we had our friend and master mixer Mark Needham mixed this record. We'd worked with him before. We knew, like, you could just hand him the stuff and it's going to sound amazing. Yeah. And he's got a room in Nashville now, so we were able to get together with him and wrap it up.
When you're making music in a time like COVID, it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in your own space, you know, because you can't really go anywhere. How do you write? I mean, are you writing off of what Chris gives you? Because you're playing the drums, right? So, like, am I going to do a shuffle? How does that work for you?
Okay, so usually Chris will have a riff. It almost always starts with a riff or maybe a lyric, you know, but usually a riff. And once I hear that, I get a lot of information from the tone of the guitar. You know, that tells me, like, how aggressive this is going to be, and that affects, you know, like, my sonic choices, what I'm going to play versus, to accompany what he's going to play. So, that information, and then, just a lot of similar interest and similar listening experience, I can know and we've been playing together a long time. So, I just kind of know.
So but his part of the process drives your part of the process.
Absolutely. There's been a couple of songs that started off, like from a drum beat, and keep playing that beat, and then, then he would come up with a riff for it. But usually, it's a lot of times it's us jamming, like here or a sound check or something. We'll start playing something. If we're at our respective instruments and they're on and they sound good, it's easy for us to create, but and a lot of times, other times he'll come in with the song completely finished. He'll say, "Hey man, I got this verse and I got these lyrics," and he'll have a verse and a chorus, and we'll just bang it out. Then that's when we make those little decisions, like which note should I hit the bass drum on? What? Where's the loud part? Where are we going to stop at? What if we did that part twice? How long do we hold that note before we come back in?
Right. And when you're playing the drums with Chris, drummers are, I would say, more adaptable to what the band is, right? Certain drummers are iconic within their own band, but for the most part, you're like, I can play anything. It doesn't matter. What do you want to play? And so Chris brings you this, and whenever I hear Chris play, I think not many players are as heavy and however you would categorize what Chris is playing is. I have to think about Dimebag when I hear him play, because when Dimebag would show up and just be like, damn, it is the entire room filled up with that. And so you've got to work with that. But is this also your home as well? Obviously this is Chris's home. This is his tone.
Yeah, it is. And this is where it fits naturally, because I loved things that were funky and had texture to them, like the meters and stuff like that. James Brown stuff that had, but it was aggressive too. It was forward leaning, and it sounded a little pissed off. And then, I listened to rock and roll forever too, so I loved that. When I was a kid, it was hair metal, and then it was alternative, and then it's just everything rock and roll, like you said, even the heavy stuff, the Pantera, very riff based.
Right.
When a Pantera song, the riff starts, when the drums come in, they have to match that intensity.
Yeah.
You don't want the drums to come in and be like, dang, man, I thought it was gonna, so my drumming, I wanted to be like a heavy metal James Brown, or just aggressive rock and roll. But I love the texture. That's what I feel like kind of got missing from a lot of records. You couldn't hear the subtleties. You couldn't play like Mitch Mitchell and get, it doesn't work for everything. So I'm glad that I'm in this band. I'm able to get like the texture out, and it's a part of the music. So,
and then that composition process, when you're trying to figure out the texture of the song, is that you just feeling it and playing it? Do you sit down and think about like, I am going to put a shuffle here, or and this is going to be prime? How do you do your composition piece?
Okay, well, usually Chris is the filter. If I have a question, he might say, "Hey, man, on that one part, what if you did this?" Okay, I'll try that, and then when it comes to, I'll ask him, "Hey, what sounds better? This or that?" I don't know. Play them again. Let's loop it. We'll play it over and over. I think I like the first one. I think it sets up the chorus better, whatever. And so we'll just kind of go through the parts, and I call it punctuation. You got your sentence, and that's one thing, but how you frame it up, where you put that semicolon, if you even use one, or how you finish that sentence. Those are the finer details that and I like that process. I like banging that out. How good can we make it? What is the right part for it?
How much does that the right part matter though when you're talking about like how do you like this versus this and you're playing things back and forth and you're doing it over and over again? At some point you're so granular. Does it really matter, that little bit? And can you even keep track of it? Like, okay, maybe one decision sticks out, but there's 5,000 decisions in an album. And do you just lose track? Like, would it have mattered if you had just picked the other option?
I think it does matter. It matters. It matters. It's going to matter when you listen to that record 5 years from now, and you're thinking, "Dang, I was, I didn't make the right choice. I didn't make the right choice." Or, in some spots, where you don't get on those finer details, it'll show up. It'll kind of, it'll spoil your listening experience if you're thinking, "Man, I should have done another fill in there. I should have done something different there." Or, it's a shame when an album comes out and then, 3 months later you get a great fill-in idea for the the second chorus or whatever.
How much does album structure matter these days? I mean, you guys got 13 tracks, I think, on this album. And are you trying to send someone on back in the old days, right? Like you would have like side 1, side 2 could be totally different vibe and everything. Could be totally different messages because you had this physical flipping of the record or the tapes changing directions. But does that matter to you guys, and does it matter in the industry at all anymore?
I think it does. I think it matters to us. Like you said, you wanted to take you on a journey. I get so pissed off when Spotify decides to play one of my favorite records out of order, just full-blown panic attack. What's happening, Yeah. I gotta get that straight, So that's my experience as a listener, and I think it is important, and it's important to make, you gotta figure out how much time you're doing vinyl, how much time you gotta have on each side. And I know it's important to Chris as well, because when we're putting them together, he'll put it in a playlist on something and send it to me, and we'll listen through it and and discuss the order. So it is important. And even if someone just likes a single and they just stick, that's cool too. But
okay, so when I listened to the album yesterday as I was driving, first off, it was fantastic. And one of the things I said to Brad, I was like, "Hey, call me. I've listened to the album." And I'd heard some of the earlier stuff, but now completely through one time. And I was wondering about the album structure, and I was asking him, and I'm like, are these guys submitting their stuff for Grammys? Because you guys should be, right? I listen to a lot of stuff. I hear a lot of things. And in your guys' genre, whatever you guys want to call it, is it blues, is it rock, whatever it is, you need to be submitting this thing because it is strong. If I'm going to be critical and I want to be fair with my criticism, I love everything about this album. It is very similar from song 1 to 13. There's not a lot of, there's no like, hey, let's do a mid-tempo number. Let's do one for the ladies. It's very thematic, which is fine. What was that decision about as well?
Okay. I'm going to give you a little pushback.
Yeah, please. This is why we do this.
I don't know, man. Like you got 40 Dead Men, which is like,
that does change tempo in 40 Dead Men.
Fast punk, and very much a Stuart Copeland inspired part there in the chorus. We were talking about, I know he's been on your show, and he's a hero of mine. And then you have like In the Nighttime, and then, you have Dust in My Hand, which is a little more droney, Desert, and then you have some of the more fuzz tunes. But I understand what you're saying. I think, I think this band reflects a lot of who we are personally and where we were as a band, and this was pre-COVID, so I don't mean like it's a COVID record. It does kind of, the themes, the parallels are there, but this record was finished before that, lyrically, almost all of it. So no, I just think that it's an honest record. Yeah. It's an honest record. So if that's the case and it's all the same, or if you're writing, like you said, one for the ladies, or hey, we need a fast shuffle song on this record, is that coming from an honest spot, Yeah. Because these were the songs that we had and that we chose to run with, and I just feel like it's indicative of the band, especially at that time. You know?
And then also the Grammy thing. Are you guys going to submit?
Man, I don't know anything about Grammys, so
well, it's time to get smart.
Okay, I don't know about submitting or any of that, you know. So
well, we got to get you guys submitting your stuff for Grammys because it's good, and you got to be considered with your peers, you know, and part of that conversation because the band is you guys. I was telling Chris when he was on the show, but you guys have done it. Like you've gotten to places where bands were like, how do we ever get this far? You know, they play in bars and they never exit and they're like hoping to be able to play their original material. You guys don't have to play covers. If you play a cover, it's because you're like, hey, let's play this song, you know, do a cover. This is incredible. And you get paid to do it. You know, you get to do this. It's so hard to get to where you guys are at and you're still going up. You guys must be excited not only for the album, but for where you're going to be 5 years from now.
Very much excited and very much, as gung-ho as day one. I mean, I love doing this. I love making records. I love, you know, banging out those little details we were discussing earlier. I like the whole process. I like everything about it. I like the work more so than some of the other things that you do, you know. I mean, the actual work, you know, the playing the drums, moving the gear, you know, that is, I'm just still so in love with it, you know.
I love that. I love that. As someone also in the arts and someone who's, you know, lean and goes on the road and moves his own gear. You saw, you know, I mean, my truck's right there. I can look at right there. There's my truck. And that thing's normally in California, but now I'm in Indiana, you know. It's, it can be hard. It is hard. You get up and you're like, God, I didn't get any sleep last night. And then you think, I'm so lucky.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. Such a blessing to be able to do this and to still be doing it, you know.
When you were getting a little down and you kind of forget that lesson, what do those moments look like? Are you sitting at the piano? Are you sitting at the mixing board? When do you go, you know what? This is exactly what I want. I mean, it's hard, but it's supposed to be hard, right? And this is the beauty of it. And I'm pushing that gear into that bar, you know, getting ready for a show. You're like, ugh. It's easy to get down on yourself. What are those moments for you? And then you realize, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm in the cold stairs. You know, this is great.
Right. The frustrations are, I think musicians are incredibly sensitive people, truth be told, most of us, you know, so this thing can hurt your feelings, you know, in a bunch of different ways, you know. You know, when you make a mistake, I was telling Chris on the plane coming back, when there's a mistake made on stage, you know, there's three thoughts that hit you immediately. Okay. You know, that simultaneously, you know, I guess it's like, hey, you know, what the F was that? You know, and then also, don't sweat it. It's okay. No one even noticed, you know, brother, no matter who makes a mistake, you know, who cares, you know, cause you gotta have a short memory. That's important. Right. You don't want it, you sit around and get pissed off about that one mistake and then there's another one right around the corner because now you're distracted, you know? Yeah. So, and then the third one is like, man, you better not say anything to me, man. You mess up too, you know, don't bring my balls over, you know, over this, you know, so we're, those kind of things, you know, there's nothing. It's worse than report card day when you miss the snare or something. You know, it's like dang. You know, so I don't know that happens in a lot of people's work. When you make a mistake at work, a lot of times, like, they ought to be paying me more. Maybe I'd be paying attention. You know, but when you're playing music, you know, it like I said, it can hurt your feelings after a bad gig, man. Yeah. And then like sometimes like. Before the shows, and usually it's only in town, you know, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something about, maybe there's other things going on in life, you know, but on the road, that's the only thing you're there to do. You know, you're not taking trash out or mowing the yard. You're just there. You don't have somebody's birthday party to go to, just to play the gig, you know. But my wife says, you know, you get, watch out, it's pre-gig, Brian, you know, and it's just, you know, I don't even realize it really is like nerves, just kind of,
you're in a zone.
And just, you know, wanting everything to go perfectly, you know, just the preparation and so.
I totally get that. I mean, I'm working on trying to how I reduce, you know, you see me come down. I don't have a lot of gear here to set up, but and I can set it up probably in 5 minutes, but if I go that fast, I get all sweaty and lathered up because I'm dealing with my brain is cooking on what am I going to talk about? What am I going to ask you about? How's this going to go? And I'm not nervous, right? But there's nervous energy that's trying to be shed. It usually comes through sweat on my back, It's like, and I'm like, why am I so hot right now? But there is something. I mean, I've done 1,000 of these things. This is not about nerves. I don't care who you are. We're going to have a great show. It's not going to be a problem, but there is something in that moment. And I'm still searching with this new setup that I've got, like, how do I get it all done? And then those mistakes, I mean, it is me. There's no Brian sitting next to me, for the most part. And so it's my job to do all this one-man band stuff. And you guys get this because you're a small band, So, one of the things I try to do is I feel those, I exactly feel those three things. I'm mad at myself. I should have done this prep. I should have done that. And then I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm here now and I'm doing it and I'm creating it. And the other thing I remind myself is that when you are on the road, incredible. We were talking about how my buddy John and I hooked up. All these things. I'm going to see Floyd Landis in Colorado. He's this incredible bike. He's won the Tour de France once. Sure, they took it away from, doping reasons, but he's an incredible dude and he's so wise and insightful and I get to share his brain with him, right? So for every mistake I make, there's these moments where these things just drop into my lap and I'm like, oh my God, look at what I'm doing right now. So what are some of the things, yes, you missed the snare drum and damn it, Brian, you know what? Then again, that bass part, I totally forgot to play the entire song or whatever it is.
Sure.
What are those good moments for you guys when you're like, I cannot believe that thing just happened and it wouldn't have happened except for the fact that you guys are willing to take those risks and make those mistakes?
I don't know that we ever, wear our arm out, patting ourselves on the back, usually it's, pretty good set, or that was pretty good. That'll be our conversation. Pretty good, not bad, and, worst thing a drummer wants to hear is, dang, man, man, we played everything way too fast or this was too slow or, but, the good moments are far outnumber the bad, you know?
Yeah.
If it sounds right, between us and where we are at our respective instruments, regardless of the environment, the rest of it just kind of goes away. If it sounds good and we're grooving, then the vibe is that vibe is way more important than the individual details of the mistakes or, we're not Steely Dan,
Yeah.
I mean, we're just,
Steely Dan's not Steely Dan.
That's true.
They do all that with the magic of the studio.
We're just mere mortals.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of good moments. The tour we just finished up, the audiences were so great, and we had such a great time, and we did, so many shows in a row coming out of COVID like everybody else, you know, to do, 12 shows in 14 days.
Yeah.
We were turning into this well-oiled machine, and it felt great, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, getting that road muscle. I mean, now I'm going to drive 10 plus hours today, but I'm in road driving shape now. I'm fit. And I've been traveling for the last 3 weeks. So for me to sit still in a car for 5 hours, and I'm like, well, let's do that again.
Yeah. Do you miss home? And then,
yeah.
Yeah. And then you get home for a little bit and you're like,
yeah.
When do we leave?
Yeah.
No.
I miss my cat and my dog, my girlfriend like crazy right now, And I'm going to see him on Sunday and it's going to be wonderful. And I'm going to completely slow down and re-enjoy that life,
Yeah.
And it is a great transition to be able to do that. How much do you want to be on the road? Like if you could do it as much as you guys wanted to do it, how much would you want to be out?
I mean, I love it. So, but I also, love my home life and, so the universe is going to work that out for me. So I don't know how much say I have in it. A fair amount, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on the road for 6 years and,
right.
Not know my wife anymore.
Right.
Right. So,
Yeah.
The family life is important to both Chris and I. We both have kids, stepkids, wives, and, so. whatever that will tolerate.
Yeah.
You know.
All right, let me change gears on this. I want to ask you some cold stares kind of questions. One of the things that's interesting, when you're interviewing people and someone will say, "Oh, you have a show. Tell me about it." And I'm like, "Well, it's the shorthand version of it is it's Rogan-esque. You never know what you're going to get. It could be a professor. It could be a hard political topic that we talk about. It could be music. It could be some artist who does something so incredible you've never heard of it, right? And then they'll say, well, who's been on your show? And so I can say, well, I've had actors, but actors require context. What kind of actor? Is this like an indie actor? Is this a world famous actor that we all know? You have to do these things. So when someone comes to you and says, Brian, what do you do? You're like, well, I'm in a band called The Cold Stares. And they're like, oh, that's cute. Like, what do you say? Like, what do you say your home genre when you talk about what the Cold Stares are? What do you say?
As little as possible. No, I don't. I don't wear the band's accomplishments on. I don't carry the band's resume in my back pocket. So when someone, I may mention that I play music and or I'm a musician then I'll tell them I play in a band called The Cold Stares, and if they want to research it or find out, then that's cool. I don't have the want to legitimize it to anyone, to justify it, I mean, I understand it's, especially being from here in the Midwest, small towns, it's not common. It's not common. And I understand people have questions. People will ask you questions that in any other field would be offensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, someone asked me, "What are you making any money?"
Yeah,
and I was like,
you?
Are you gonna? Yeah, are you gonna? Next, you're gonna ask me how much I weigh. I mean, what do you?
Yeah.
But I understand people are naturally curious.
Yeah.
So I explained it to her. I'm like, yeah, sort of, but not really, and here's why. And just I understand people being curious, and I've never want to be rude about it. But I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. It does answer. And I love the topic about money because at the podcast, okay, I have a really, like you guys, I have a very successful podcast. You see the people that come on, they say yes because the podcast is legitimate. And the Cold Stares, the Break It Down show, and I know this will work for you. They have a life of their own, that entity, where I can say, well, it's the Break It Down show. And then they look and you're like, holy cow. What is this thing? And so that's not me. That's the show, right? It's a completely separate thing. And so when people say, how much money do you make? I'm like, I make a little bit. I mean, I can always use more, and that will always probably be true. But the value of our interaction, I now know you, these J.R. Robinson becomes my friend, and we have these other things that are so much more valuable than $5.
Certainly. My wife said it best. We were talking about this one day, and I think maybe it was after 2018 when we went to did a little short European tour, and basically we broke even, and by the time we bought plane tickets and all that stuff. There's many ways to look at that, and my wife, she was saying, all your payments from what you do are not going to be monetary. Right. I can't remember exactly how she worded it, but you're absolutely right. You can't put a price on that, being able to do that. And even a break even thing is such a blessing to be able to do that. To make, I got to tell you this story. This is so cool. Like our European tour, 2018, I believe, we're playing South by Southwest. I get a hold of this gentleman, friend of a friend, like these things work. Friend of a friend. He wants to, he says that he can book us some extra gigs down at South by Southwest. I get a hold of this guy, and he does just that. So, he's a cowboy. He's living, in Austin, and he's initially from Sweden. So he gets us a couple of gigs down there. And I'm wearing this denim jacket. It's got these tan flanks on it, and it's a denim jacket. He's admiring it, and something in the back of my head is saying, give the dude the jacket. I'd kind of worn it. It had its life with me, and then, I was getting ready to retire it. I was close to it, and I thought, just give the guy the jacket. I didn't. I always regretted it. So, fast forward 3 years. he gets kicked out of the country because his ex-wife turned him in. He was here without a green card or visa or whatever. He gets kicked out of the country. He's back in Sweden. We find out we're going. I get a hold of him. He comes to our gig. I bring the jacket, you know, and I get to give him the jacket, you know, on the other side of the world 3 years later, you know, and just those kind of stories and experiences, you can't put a price tag on those.
Does Don Mattingly know you guys exist?
I don't think so. We know he exists, though.
Right. Yeah. So if Don's like, you know what? I love the Cold Stairs. What would that mean to you guys?
You know, that anyone likes it is cool.
Yeah.
You know, that anybody likes it is cool. It's always good to get, you know, like, it always feels good when someone you respect says that they like it, or, you know, even anyone. So yeah, it would be cool. That would be certainly cool. But I'll say what really, you know, local musicians, you know, there's some great musicians around here.
Yeah.
Place a drummer farm.
Right.
You know, there's, you know, 3 of my favorite drummers ever are from this area, these local dudes, you know. And so to get, like, you know, one of those guys send you a message or you know, say, hey, man, I like your record or whatever, that means a lot, you know, so. From anybody.
And for the audience who don't know or who live in a different country, Don Mattingly is a very famous baseball player turned coach, and he's from this town.
Yeah, from Evansville, Indiana.
And so it's a big thing. So, okay, so you're not impressed by Don Mattingly, but there's someone you're like, man, if this person ever said, you know what, I dig the Cold Stairs, who would that person be? Who's the person you're like, man, that is awesome?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll never get it, but I wouldn't mind Donald Fagen's stamp of approval.
All right.
You know,
all right.
I don't think. I'm not sure it's up his alley, but it means the same coming from anybody, really. And to be honest with you, if it's in regards to a show or an album, I'm not going to say I don't care, but I feel about it how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And you know, if I think I sucked and it had a bad show, and I mean, you could have everyone in France and all the other countries tell me how great it was, and it wouldn't mean anything to me.
Right.
You're not going to convince me that, you know.
Yeah.
Conversely, though, hey man, if we feel like we rocked, we kicked ass, and they didn't like it, that's their fault, man.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I guess it only carries so much weight, you know.
Yeah, I gotcha. So if you're not the guy that's going to talk about the Cold Stairs, you know, when you meet people and say, man, we're the great band, like if you're not going to get excited about it, how do you introduce it to other people? How do you spread the word? And if that isn't your job, like if that's Chris's job or the publicist's job, you know, that's fine too. But how do you get to that next level? What does it take to break that?
Okay, so let me clarify
Please.
the other bit. It's not that I'm not excited about it, you know.
Right.
It's just someone that doesn't listen to music, and you know that you just bump into it, like, you know, the grocery store or something. That they don't listen to music, and they don't even know who my heroes are, you know. So they're just not gonna care, you know. So I don't have any interest in, you know, hey, you need to get into vinyl. You need to start listening to, you need to turn the radio off and find some good records. That's not my job. You know? So, how do I think I do as far as my part introducing people to the music, or probably more online, you know. But that's it. I guess it's all of our jobs to. And word of mouth, man.
Yeah.
I think like if you build it, they will come. You know, the Field of Dreams thing. Just the universe will take care of it. Just get it together. Don't stop. You know,
right.
Knowing who you are and who you're not. You know, as a project, that's the most important thing. You know, this like it or not. If you like this record or don't like this record, this is a very honest record. This is who the band is, you know. So when a band knows who they are, I feel like, and what they're not, I feel like they figure a lot of things out, you know.
Yeah, and more so than your blue check marks on your guys' social media accounts, you guys do know what your voice is, and you hear that clearly in your music, and you guys are very comfortable. And again, I'm not joking. It's Grammy grade stuff. Whether or not you get a Grammy, it's not for me to decide, but you are at that level. You are doing this game at a level of like the top professionals, right? And so So it's important that you guys do continue to grow. It's important that people support you and everything. A lot of times, the folks in your hometown, you know, like, I don't know about your friends, but like my friends will often say, boy, you've been getting some great guests lately. And I'm like, where you been? Like every week, it's ridiculous, you know, or they'll say, and I love my friends. I have a lot of friends. I have wonderful people in my life, and I'm not hitting on them at all. I'm just, these are the funny things that hit you as an artist. And they're like, are you still doing that podcast? I'm like, yeah. So how does that go with your friends and family? Like, hey, are you still in that band?
You know what? It goes great, man, because there's a bright side to that, you know, and that means that's not your identity to them.
Yes.
So you can't, you know, they're not just coming up to you because you're in that band, or, you know, they're your friend first, you know, and same as if they're in a band, you know. One of my best friends, he's a drummer and he's in a band and they're doing great right now. And, but our friendship transcends that, you know. We keep talking, we're going to run into each other on the road one of these days, and it's just going to be so awesome because we've grown up together, went to the same high school. First gig I ever had, I had so many drums, I couldn't get them in my car to get back. I didn't have the arrangement
plan
exactly right where it would fit. So he takes me, helps me get my drums home. So, you know, those people are real friends, and but yeah, and they don't need to know, man. You don't have to. You can hate this band and be my friend. You know, I'm totally cool with that. You know, if you either like it or you don't. You know.
Yeah. When I listen to the album and to your music in general, and for people who don't know, the Cold Stairs are, Jesus Christ, get on board. But two pieces, and even when there's something else in there, when there is more bass in there, it's not prominent. It's you two. You know, so if there's keys, it's not obviously keys. You know, you don't have someone going do 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 do. You know, it's within the framework of you two, the two of you, I should say. Is that going to evolve as you guys get bigger? I mean, you're going to, like, if you go and play on the road, if you're opening for some gigantic band, or you guys are headlining your own thing, I mean, someone's got to play bass. You don't want Chris doing that and singing and playing the guitar, or not.
We get asked this a lot, and it's something that comes up because a few of our songs, some fan favorites, and then some stuff, you know, Chris plays bass in the studio, and there are some key elements, and there's a few songs that present challenges to play live, you know, and usually we don't play them. We have a large catalog, and we play the ones that kind of fit the environment. You know, we have a show Sunday night, 35-minute set, you know, depending on who we're playing with. Yeah. I'm sure when we do Aftershock in October, that's a heavy lineup. I mean, Metallica is the headliner. Wow. So it's a bunch of heavy bands. So we're going to play our heavier stuff. When we do the blues thing with Bonamassa, we're going to play the bluesier tunes, you know. So I don't know. I mean, if we get to a point where we had to make a decision or add something, I guess we would have to do that. But I don't feel like we do now. I feel like, and they don't have to be verbatim the same thing. You know, I think maybe that's what's missing from some shows. There's so many tracks going on, and it sounds just like a record. I mean, it basically is the record with the band playing along, and you have those things in the background or whatever. And I feel like that's a little sterile, you know? Is it cheating? Is it not cheating? I don't know. I mean, as it stands now, we've never done anything like that. No sequencing, no sampling, no triggers. I hope it stays that way. I understand if it doesn't, but you know, if a song gets really big and it's pertinent that it's presented and sounds like the record, then I suppose that's what we'll do.
Well, there's one thing. Yes, a lot of in business they'll say you want to be authentic, and I reject that because either you are authentic or you're not. Like, you don't. If you're trying to be authentic, and there's for sure authenticity in what you guys do.
Yeah,
and that comes across, and I think it's partly because you're like it is really the two of you doing this. I mean, you build the songs so that you can play them live, but that's as authentic as it gets. These are your lyrics. These are your things. You do know your voice, and it is an authentic voice.
Yeah, I would agree. And, you know, Chris and I had a few bands before this one, and I don't feel like that was always the case. Like, you know, I don't feel like we had exactly honed in on what it was, you know, and really him, because, you know, we had a few bands, had a hiatus, and then, you know, he came over to play, and then he had Jesus Brother James and John, you know, two of our older songs, you know, the first two songs, you know, I'm like, wow, this is a cut above the other stuff. This is definitely has transcended what we were doing before, you know.
That authenticity and the need to grow, these things fight, and the artistic directions you guys want to go. So I'm listening to the new album, and take this in the way I mean this, but the open heart and everything else. But I'm listening, and I'm like, God, I wish there were some horns in this song. And then I have a harmonica, and I'm playing harmonica a little bit. And I while I'm driving forever on the road, I'm like, I've got time to put to orchestrate a little harmonica piece in there, you know, and I was playing along, and I backed it up, and I'm like, I think this sounds pretty damn good. And, you know, like if I was to actually work on it for more than an hour or whatever, you know, it might sound really damn good, you know, to do that. Maybe put an effect on the harmonica. Oh my God. You know, so I have all these conversations, and I think to myself, how do these guys stay home with the music? And I'm not literally home, but how do you guys stay home, but also allow for that harmonica or those horns to show up? Because if you it's the blues. I mean, the horns that's where it started. I mean, Buddy Bolden was a horn player when he was basically inventing the genre, you know?
Yeah. There's been a few songs that maybe almost had horns on them at one point, you know. Again, you know, that it kind of does present the problem of, well, what are we going to do live about that if we do have the horns in there? But I think if we felt that it was a better song with the horns, we'd put the horns on there and worry about the conundrum later. But I think, you know, just knowing there's certain things that are going to be out of bounds or that aren't going to fit, you know, and I feel like we're both pretty quick to pump the brakes or you know, nah, I don't know about that, you know, and it's really just those decisions are that quick, you know. Hey, I was thinking about using this shaker. Okay, never mind. But, you know, so, you know, when you know, and I think a violently executed decision in that regard is way better than paralysis by analysis, you know.
But is it worth the time to grab that horn and blow it and see how the part fits, or do you guys just not even give it a try?
We've never tried with a horn. Never felt like something tried. You know, we'll try things. We've tried things that you know that are still on the cutting room floor, and you know, I can try percussion. I could, you know, drag Fred Sanford's whole junkyard in the studio and try to make it'll sound like a junkyard ensemble by the time I'm done with it. You know, so it's definitely like not from not willing to try it, but we. You know, we like what we like, and we kind of stay in the lane of what we like. You know, there's not a lot of drum machines and synths on stuff that we like stuff, wooden instruments. You know.
Yeah. Well, and I think the whole point here is there is an authenticity to your voice, and it's because you guys know what your voice is, and you know what the elements are, and it's guitars, lyrics, a blues bass, I would say, and then you on the drums just holding the whole thing together. And you're like, I don't necessarily need a bass player to tell me, you know, like to work with, to play off of. You're the guy, you know? Yeah.
And I feel like the bass player drummer relationship has almost been like maybe overstated, you know? I think, you know, I've never like in bands with bass players and side projects or session stuff, you know, never just like focus so much on the bass player, you know. It's more the song as a whole, and that really hasn't changed. It's my approach is no different than bass player or not. Really, the guitar player starts the riff, and then I'm thinking of the beat, and I'm hoping the bass player is listening to me, and I'm gonna listen to him, and you know, hopefully it's a conversation, but. I mean, I think with the main riff, I mean, we know the notes to play. I mean, the accents to hit. The emphasis is where the emphasis is, and that's, you know, that's where you want to play, regardless if it's with the bass player. It's not that the bass player and drummer together. They're both probably with the riff, where the big notes are. Play the big notes,
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Where do you see the band in 5 years? I'm curious, like when you think about what's next and what's next, that's not a question I like to ask, but I think for you guys, it's in particular like important here because you have a vision. You're creating. I mean, you just have a new album out. And this album is huge and it's going to do great for you guys, but then there'll be time for the next album. And that means you got to start thinking about that almost today, This album's done. What's next?
Yeah. There's been conversation, we definitely plan on making several more albums. So as far as what's next in 5 years, we're just going to keep doing it. We're just going to keep doing it. The rest of the stuff will take care of itself. The metrics and numbers and graphs and imaginary digital hearts and all that and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We want to keep making records. We're going to keep making records.
And thank you for that.
Provided we're both healthy and able. So that's the plan.
Outside of the studio, how do you fill the well? I mean, because you're a drummer, so it's easy to think, well, maybe you're listening to some music and hearing some parts, but beyond that, like Wycliffe says, there's music everywhere. Wycliffe says, like, it's in the trees, it's that bird, there's music everywhere. That's how he fills the well. How do you fill the well?
I feel like there's inspiration everywhere. And I think a lot of things in day-to-day life fill the well. This is going to sound really crazy. I had a 3-legged dog for a little bit, and he was missing a front leg, and he just had so much spirit. He was an escape artist, and he was super fast. And I went through a period where I wasn't. We weren't doing as good as what we wanted to be doing, and I was fighting. I had a technique issue, and I was fighting an injury, and was going through a divorce. I was pretty down and a little bit worn out, and I just looked at that dog, just having the time of his life chasing something with his 3-leg, and it was inspirational. So it comes from those kind of things, like get off your ass and go get it, go get it. And so that kind of thing, like inspiration-wise or motivation-wise, it's everywhere. I feel like as is music, but musically, there's just so much also. I just love discovering new things and learning, constantly learning.
Yeah.
I've taken 2 drum lessons this week, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that look like?
Well, I took one of them was a Skype thing, and then another thing, I went to go buy this new drum set 2 days ago, and I was at Forks in Nashville, and I had a student of mine with me, and I'm like, hey, is there anyone teaching? Can we take a lesson? So just any opportunity to learn and hear something from someone else, and I want that opportunity for my student too.
Sure.
To hear it from someone else, or maybe even get some conflicting information.
Yeah.
And because it's for them to sort out. That happens too. So
this is an important thing because of the accessibility we all have to one another electronically. You can literally get a lesson from J.R. Robinson. He'll sit down with you and you can buy some of his time, and it's affordable, like, especially if you're a drummer. And you can really reach out to, if you want to get into acting or whatever it is, there's all kinds of people that are like, yeah, I'll teach people how to do it. You don't have to rent a storefront and have 200, students to make money. You literally can be like, yeah, let's go spend an hour together, work on this, and I'll see you next week. Yeah. That's incredible.
It is incredible. It is incredible. I will say, I feel like drums, and I'm sure this is the case with most. I know it is. Chris teaches also. He's a fantastic teacher. Great with kids, adults. He's got a way, a very wise and simplistic way of saying things, and I'll overhear him explaining it. And I love teaching. So I have a lot of respect for the way that he does that. But With drums, it's so much better in the room. You know, with the microphones and the Zoom calls, they just freak out at the volume, and you can't get the tone. You can't. And
someone needs to build a specific platform for drums and musicians.
Almost, yeah, and just like being behind, seeing. You know, where's the weight in his body? Where's the pressure? You know, in his leg? Where's he holding tension, or where's he not holding tension? Ideally, how relaxed is he? Where's his weight on the seat? You know, You know,
and that's a thing I wanted to get into a little bit with you is. You are a drummer. You don't have to work to be a drummer, right? But you do have to learn how to maintain your body. You're an athlete. You're back there. Both legs are going. Both arms are going. You know, you're sitting in this chair. You're hot. You need a fan, you know, to keep. I mean, you're describing someone who's an endurance athlete or some kind of thing like that. And it doesn't get easier. Yes, you can play drums until you're an old man, but it requires some maintenance. You talked about an injury. What does it take for you to do what you do? And also, it seems like you're a hard-working guy, like you'd prefer to work rather than like let it come to you. So how do you maintain yourself so that you can actually do that next gig or recover, you know, whether it's a drumming injury or, you know, you slip and you put your arm down and you hurt something?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question.
Yes.
And I think this is maybe something that should be talked about a little bit more because I know, you know, when you have those injuries and stuff, you don't want anyone to know. You don't want to, you know, think, oh, I've got damaged goods here. You know, I just heard about some super drummer having carpal tunnel, and I'm like, wow, I'd never heard that. You know, they keep those things on the down low.
Right.
But injuries happen, and you fight through them. You know, you got to be smart about it. But I think in a lot of cases, why did it happen? What were you doing wrong? Holding the stick too tight, all that stuff. But you're right. It's the other things. I used to think like maybe playing the drums would keep me in shape. It's not going to do that. I mean, getting in shape will help you play the drums. And, and, you know, I started working out and I changed my diet and all those things. And, all this tendonitis and injuries kind of went away, you know, and I kept stopping things that I was doing, you know. So I became a vegetarian and, you know, I don't eat a lot of bread. I noticed like, if I, you know, a lot of glutens and stuff that I have a little bit more inflammation. I stopped drinking. You know, so
that doesn't sound very rock and roll, but it does sound like a drummer who's a professional.
Yeah, it's not rock and roll, but like, yeah, I want to do this a very long time. You know, I do. And, you know, I go to the gym a lot and I'm not trying to get super big, but I'm trying to, you know, keep everything aligned.
Right.
You know, your core and your hips and stuff. And just, I like being able to play a 2-hour set and have something else left in the tank should we need it. You know, it is a very physical instrument. And I'm just so in love with it just still that I need to be able to do this for a very long time. I'm just as frustrated as day one. Now, you said you don't have to work to be a drummer. That's not true. I do.
Yeah.
It didn't come to me naturally at all. I had to really work at it.
Yeah.
And still do.
I remember when Yvonne Lendl was at his peak as a player, but on the backside of that peak, right? But he's still at the very top. He's winning championships. He said, I don't have to practice to get my shots down. I have to practice to maintain my fitness so that, you know, I'm always ready to perform. So, and that's kind of what I mean. Like, you know how to do these things. Yes, you're going to take a lesson. Yes, you're going to add techniques to the bag and everything. But I think it's more about the maintenance of the machine. And like you said, I mean, you're on my glue. And I'm so glad you said that because like I do a lot of rowing to stay fit. And if I don't focus on my form, you know, the repetition causes itises in various things. And I can feel the sugar in my body when I row. I'm like, I had sugar and that's why I feel like crap right now compared to if I have the right diet ahead of time. And it takes time to sort these things out, but it's incredible that you're talking about that because it impacts your performance, at least if not physically, mentally for sure, because you feel it and you're thinking about it and you're not thinking about playing the groove you're playing because you're like, man, my right arm is killing me.
Yeah, you're thinking about the pain that you're in and, you know, okay, wow, I got to hit this snare 75 more times in the next 30 seconds, you know. I think diet is really important. You know, I want longevity. I've, you know, being you said it's not very rock and roll, you know, being an alcoholic and a drug addict was never part of my rock and roll dream, you know.
Right, yeah.
And I've, you know, I've drank enough, so I've retired. So.
Well, and that's maturity and professionalism coming in, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It really, I've never got drunk and ruined a gig. I've never, not an angry drunk. It's not like I was having really any repercussions. It's just like this. You're working hard in other areas to stay healthy. It doesn't make any sense to put this in your body, and COVID hit and it started to move the wrong way a little bit. It's like, wow, this is, drinking more frequently and more quantities than what I was the day before. And I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and when you see someone like the Boss running all over stage at 70-something years old, sliding on his knees, he's not doing that because he lives a rock and roll lifestyle. He's doing that because he's been in shape for decades.
Yeah.
And he's maintained it. Yeah. Sammy Hagar, he puts on this show of like, I go to the beach and drink tequila all day. And I'm sure he does that some of the time, but it's managed and it's definitely not too much.
Or he's superhuman. It's one or the other.
Right, because he's also 70 years old.
Yeah, I've wondered about that. Like, how do you do that, dude? I don't understand how you knock back 3 shots of tequila and do anything.
Yeah. Oh, hey, listen, so we're coming up to the end of this hour, and it's great to be in your space. I just love it. And I'm going to be thinking about this as I'm driving the next couple, 20 hours, whatever. But what should I have asked you? What do you really want to say about this new album? What's left to cover?
What's left to cover? I think you hit it all. I think I think the hope is just, on release day is, I just hope people listen to the record and enjoy it. I mean, I think that's true for everybody. That's, I don't know. I'm not finding any majestic words of wisdom to put a bow on it. I don't really know. It's
well, tell everybody to go and buy that damn album. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, buy the record, but or just listen to it. Listen. That's enough for me.
So, what are the Cold Stares? Tell me who you guys are. That's what I want to know.
You mean artistically or as people?
Tell me who the Cold Stares are.
A couple of friends from Kentucky that play rock and roll.
Perfect.